Some people ask me, why do you make films? Some people ask me, what is the purpose of the film? For whom you are making this film? Whenever they ask me this question, I say I quote two quotations from two major filmmakers from across the globe. One is, of course, our own legend, Mani Kaul, who says, I make for myself. The other is Louis Buñuel, who says, I make for my friends. On the outside, it looks a very arrogant statement, but if you go deep into it, I think both are talking sense. Both are talking true. Because the popular filmmakers, they keep saying, the audience want it. But who are these audience? Actually, it's a projection of ourselves. See, after all, we place, while making the film, a filmmaker places himself as the receiver and looks at the film, looks at the scripts, reads the scripts, and experiences it. That way, in a very philosophical sense, he's really making films for himself. So there's nothing objectionable in such statements, but one has to be very clear about it that one really makes films, a good film, when one is totally convinced. Who gets convinced? Not the audience, but he himself, the maker gets convinced. When he gets convinced, he is making these films. And the second thing they ask, why do you make films? Because films are for entertainment. I totally negate that. I said films are not for entertainment. And then I asked this question, could you please define what is entertainment? I say, cinema is not for entertainment, cinema is for engagement. One of the reasons why I say this these days, it's becoming increasingly visible that we are not getting we are not getting engaged with our own milieu, with our own society, with our own state, with our own country. We are so self-centered. As the day progresses, man is becoming so much self-centered that he doesn't even know, he or she doesn't even know what is happening in the next door. Gets cocooned in his own world. His wife, his son, his daughter, his mother, his family, his house, and doesn't bother what is happening. See, in such a situation, when I make films, I try to understand beyond me what is really important. Who are the other people who really need to be addressed, whose grievances to be addressed, whose grievances to be brought forth. And then I see these people, and that's when I start making films. In that process, I have, after 40 years, 50 years, I say, my understanding of India is better now. My understanding of my own people is better now. Because I not only look at my class, I not only look at my caste, I not only look at my people, I also look beyond them, other sections of the society. That's why most of my films talk about the people who are marginalized in the society because their grievances I have not understood. So this is a process of understanding them, and this is a process of getting related to them, relating myself to them, and in that process, bringing their problem to the center stage. So it's a two-way process because I get benefited and their grievances are seen on the screen. In this process, if the audience, if the viewer, if the cineast sees my effort, and if he tries to understand that, I would say my effort has borne fruit. Very often one asks this question, especially it's becoming more and more clear now, it's becoming more obvious now. Many people think film, the state, the people in power think cinema is for propagating their ideas, for propaganda. Others think cinema is for entertainment. In both the cases, they do not want to address the real, within quote, the facts. I would say the purpose of cinema is not to give answers, not to give any solutions, but to raise questions. This is not just my statement. I also have seen many people saying this. Button Tavernier, for example, in this one says, interview says, the purpose of cinema is to raise questions, not to answer it. So if you answer, that means on behalf of the entire society you are answering it. But if you raise the question and make audience internalize it, then everyone will try to find answers. So then it becomes more democratic. If you start giving answers, it becomes fascist, he says. So I do not want to make films which give answers, but which raises questions. Sometimes social questions, sometimes philosophical questions. I don't know how many of my films have raised that philosophical questions, but there are some filmmakers who ask basic questions, like Kurosawa asks in all his films, why is human being so cruel? Why that cruelty is imbibed in us? It's a kind of a philosophical question for which we have no answers. But there are certain social issues for which we have answers, of course. Sometimes I have answers, sometimes I don't have answers. But I don't want to thrust my views on the audience. I would like to treat my audience as equal and share my views so that we both discuss, internalize, and then come out with a solution. That's one of the reasons why Eisenstein says the film should create an inner monologue. A film that is viewed should create an inner monologue. Or, Asghar Farhadi says, which is even more visual, he says, the purpose of art should be like the small pebble that gets into your shoe. So every time you step, you realize something is pinching you. So it's not a smooth walk. So one tries to understand what is it that pinches me, and then he finally is able to understand the problem. So that's why I would say, all these masters have told us that cinema should make you think, make you internalize their experiences. It's not enough if cinema becomes purely ideational, wherein ideas are bumped on us. It should also become experiential. So it's a combination of content being experiential as well as ideational, so that we not only experience certain, most of the popular cinema give us experience, but they are weak on ideational level. So a film, good cinema is that one which combines these two things, very great balance. What is this questioning of? Anantmurthy says, the questioning of the accepted notion is by itself a politics. Questioning is itself a politics, he says. It's a politics which we all should understand. Because what happens, we very often, especially in our society, we just want to be passive receivers all the time. If a minister is speaking, if a religious leader is speaking, if our leader is speaking, we simply accept it without questioning it, because it's not there in our teaching curriculum itself. We don't question the teacher. We always just accept whatever he says. Even if he says, I've seen white crow, we simply accept it. We don't ever question him. Is there ever any, because we are so afraid. If you say, can there be a possibility of seeing a white crow? Then he will beat you up. He will not come down and say, yes, I faltered. So we try to keep this seriously. That's why questioning is very important. And Anantmurthy says, a mere act of questioning is a political act. And he also says, if you don't subscribe to dominant ideology, that is also politics. When he was the chairman of Sahitya Academy, he started giving awards for the tribal languages. Somebody asked him, is there a rich literature? Why are you giving award to tribal art, tribal literature? He said, that's a political act. Because they are trying to write in their language, not in the accepted language. So that's a political act. So I am giving that award. In cinema also, very often people say, why do you make regional language cinema? Why do you make that kind of cinema? Why do you make that? It's for me. It is by making that film, I am trying to assert there is a language here, there is a community here, they have their own problem, they have their own identity. If everyone starts doing one kind of cinema, then the rich, multiple, strata of society is lost. The homogenizing is the greatest danger humanity can face. That too in India, homogenizing is a very dangerous. So if at all we need to assert ourselves, we need to keep that heterogeneous quality, and we need to make films in regional languages. This also poses another question. So we have, making films is a very difficult task because you need to receive challenges from various quarters. You need to convince the viewer, you need to convince the critics, you need to convince the producer, financial, the market. Each one comes up with a kind of a challenge to you. Like the viewer, he is conditioned by the market to accept only one kind of cinema. To make him accept the other kind of cinema is a very difficult challenge. So one has to face that if one is willing to do a different kind of cinema. Then the second is that we need to find a new idiom, because our job is to not only to continue this in the traditions but also bring in new dimensions to the condition. So we need to change. When you need change, you again antagonize the audience, antagonize the producer, antagonize the industry. So for these reasons, I say when somebody who is making cinema, who doesn't subscribe to the established norms, I would always say is a very important, significant filmmaker for me. Then comes the critical, acceptance. We have a problem especially in the colonized countries, that we tend to look outside, we never look at ourselves. Even this statement is very dangerous. When we say we have to look at our tradition, what is this tradition? Every political party defines the tradition in one way or the other. I'm not saying in that sense. But especially in cinema, which is basically a technological innovation and technological art, everything comes from, very basically Eurocentric. If we get an acceptance by Europe or America, we tend to believe that it's a major film. But we need to say each culture, each community, each country has its own way of expressing itself. It's like the food habits. Not all of us can eat burger and get away with it. I want dosa. I want idli for my breakfast. Probably Satish wants something Maharashtrian food for breakfast. Similarly, even our expressions are different. So we cannot